When you look at Alabama-Arkansas the last 5 years, it's advantage Alabama. The only setback for the Tide was that heartbreaker in Mike Shule's last season in Fayetteville when Alabama, just couldn't kick a field goal or an extra point, or they would have won that game. But Arkansas won that one. But other than that, Alabama has had the Hogs number the last 2 years by decisive margins, although last year's score may be a little misleading, 35-7, but that was a tougher football game than that. Well, this year the Razorbacks are having to rebuild up front on defense, but when you look at their offense, Rodney, it has the potential to be one of the best in the SEC, led by a senior quarterback in Ryan Mallett, who some are saying will be the #1 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, great talent, Gary. Again, when he played against Alabama last year, it was early in the season. He got better and better as the season went along, as did the Arkansas offense. They have a lot of weapons. Greg Childs, that might be him right there, number 85. And you remember, they almost beat Florida. They lost on a controversial ending. And, Arkansas is going to be good. No question about it. Bobby Petrino is a great coach.
Another thing, Rodney, I think Arkansas is looking at this game as a measuring stick. Not that they didn't last year, but I think Petrino was embarrassed last year. I did the Arkansas postgame in the locker room last year, and I think he was embarrassed that he just didn't feel like his team felt like they could win. And I think he sees this as a game that if they can have a chance to win it, really will mark their program turning it around as far as the ACC is concerned.
I'll tell you, quite honestly, Alabama did a great job last year of keeping Ryan Mallett on the move. If they can keep him on the move, they're going to be in great position. But Arkansas had some plays last year that were open. They just missed those throws. And again, you hope that this year Alabama will have a young secondary, but I do believe Alabama's pass rush is going to be a lot better up front.
Yeah, that's part of a stretch, and we'll talk more about it next week, though. You get Arkansas, you get Florida, you get South Carolina. Certainly Alabama is going to be the hunted in 2010. Okay, let's take some phone calls. First up tonight is Trey in West Blockton. Trey, how are you?
Good. How are y'all doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I had a question. I know the nature of the beast when it comes to these recruiting rankings is that there is a disparity. I mean, players are ranked here on one list and they're according to another source, and it's almost, I guess, uniformly disparate when it comes to that. But something really caught my eye as far as Alabama commitment Brent Callaway is concerned. Rivals and Scout have him, I think, number 9 and number 128, respectively. And, that's a pretty stark disparity in my estimation, and you're talking about two, I guess, virtually equally reputable sources, so all things considered, I was kind of wondering what could possibly account for that.
All right, Trey, Rodney, one service has him a top 10 player in the country. Other service, I think he said 128 or something, still 130 in the country is pretty good, but, different evaluators evaluate differently, I guess.
Well, you and I talked a few years ago when Marcel Darius signed with Alabama out of Huffman. What rivals have him, or Scout or whoever, what'd they have him ranked? We thought he was a great player. They had him rated a 3-star, however they rate them. Again, I don't put a lot of stock into those ratings. I talked to a guy that spent 10 years in the NFL, does a lot of scouting. He told me 2 of the guys that Alabama has committed, Malcolm Fashawn, the tight end from Picayune, Mississippi, and LaMichael Fanning, who's moving back over to Georgia from Auburn High School, said potentially they're as good as anybody. And they're rated not low, but they're maybe not as high as some of the other guys on Alabama's commitment list at this point. But he thinks those are guys that have a chance as they develop to become outstanding, great football players.
We do know this, Brent Callaway is a good prospect, no doubt about that.
He's an athlete, Gary. He's an outstanding basketball player. He's got good size. He's got height. He's got a frame to fill out. Again, he's extremely well built. He runs well. He may not do this or that, maybe run sideways as well as some or whatever, but he is an outstanding talent. And again, when you get him coaching, they develop a lot of this.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Marcel Darius. I'm no evaluator. I don't do it for a living, but we have watched a lot of football players, and all I know is when I saw him on tape at Huffman, I called you and said, this guy's the best defensive lineman in the country.
Yep, and he's a good one.
And why he wasn't rated. Now, he was rated highly, I guess 3 or something, but why people watched tape of him and didn't think he was the best defensive lineman, one of the best I'd ever seen. I think he's proven that one out. All right, let's talk to Joseph in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening? How you doing, man?
Doing well.
Hey, say, man, how many okay, from my understanding, okay, how's everything looking on the 2011 football recruiting? I hear, from my understanding, he got a pretty good deck on 2011.
Well, Joseph, Alabama has 14 commitments at the present time, but Rodney, as you pointed out last week, evaluating prospects and commitments continues, and some of the guys that are committed right now might not necessarily be signing with Alabama, and it's a very fluid process.
And on a lot of guys, Gary, again, when you look at it, Alabama's recruiting is more nationwide this year. You know, you've got guys from Ohio, Trey DePriest. You've got guys from California, Isaac Latua, who is already committed. Jesse Williams from the state of Arizona is one of the best junior college, if not the best junior college interior defensive lineman in the country. Todd Pete from Arizona is another outstanding defensive lineman. And again, Tony Stewart from the state of Florida is a tremendous linebacker. I mean, you can talk about guys all over the country. Curtis Grant from the state of Virginia, tremendous linebacker. George Atkinson III from the state of California is a tremendous athlete. So, you know, Alabama's recruiting far and wide, Joseph, and I think they're going to have maybe one of their best recruiting years.
Wow, and that's saying something, you know, after what's happened under Nick Saban. All right, let's stay in Tuscaloosa and talk with Kenneth. Kenneth, you're on the program. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. With the 2010 season coming up with Alabama being the ranked #1 team, I know the biggest game on the schedule is the Penn State game. Do you see Alabama having any problems after the Penn State game on down the road?
All right, Kenneth, yeah, we're going to continue to break down the schedule in the weeks to come. Penn State's a big game. I'm not sure it's the biggest because it's not an SEC game, but, yeah, they're going to have some trouble. We already talked about Arkansas. Florida here in Tuscaloosa is going to be a very tough game. The Gators are gunning for the Tide. South Carolina there. You've got Auburn late in the year. You've got LSU. I mean, in this conference, Kenneth, you know, there's a potential landmine every week.
Yeah, you know, you summed it up, Gary. Tennessee.
Yeah.
You know, all those teams, a lot of those teams back to back. And then, you know, hypothetically, what if you play Florida? I mean, you beat Florida in the regular season, you win the SEC West, then you might have to play them again in the SEC championship game. And again, there's a long way to get to that point, but you know, playing in the SEC, it's extremely difficult each and every week.
Yeah, I mean, last year, even though Alabama had a perfect year, there were some tough games and plays that had to be made late in games to go undefeated. To do it 2 straight years in the regular season the way that the Tide has is phenomenal. To do it 3 years would be almost unheard of in this day and age.
Right, and let's not forget all the teams that have bye weeks in the SEC before they play Alabama. And we remember last year, we said it after the South Carolina game, this is a gassed football team holding on by a thread. And they had to play a Tennessee team that was just starting to develop. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Crompton was just coming into his own, and they had a week off before Alabama. And they'd gained a lot of momentum after they beat Georgia. So again, you know, sometimes the schedule plays against you. And this year, you know, it could be play against Alabama to some point, but to some extent. But, you know, Gary, also, let's don't forget, there's several teams, I think there's, 6, 7, something like that, that's going to be breaking in new quarterbacks against that Nick Saban defense. That's
an advantage for Alabama. Thanks, Kenneth, for the phone call. Stick around. More of your phone calls and emails when we come back. And as we go to break, take a look at our upcoming TI-TV football preview schedule, the games that we'll be breaking down the next couple of weeks.